All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Talking Ted, where Tori, that's me, and Danny, we talk about our favorite show, Ted Lasso, at least one of our favorite shows. Today's episode was a crazy one to talk about. This was episode 6. So that means we are officially halfway through.
Wow.
That makes me so sad to say. Halfway through season 3, of course, rumored to be the final season of Ted Lasso. So let's get right into it. This episode was called Sunflowers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of us have been waiting for this one because there were a lot of spoilers online when they were filming it. And there were a lot of things that people saw that got everyone really excited. So what did you think about this episode? I feel like you either loved it or you hated it. There was no in between. I would say this was like the Beard After Hours, or what is it? Beard After Dark, episode 2. So it was very similar to that. It was written by Brendan Hunt.
Yes.
So, it was very Beard-esque. A lot of things happening at once. What were your thoughts?
Well, I loved it. First off, yes, I'm in that camp. I thought it was excellent. I didn't hear any of the rumors, so I'm glad I kind of avoided all of the spoilers or rumors leading up to this episode. I just knew the one thing that I knew about it was that it took place not in London, but it took place in Amsterdam. So here we go, in Amsterdam.
Hey, I like that. Oh, man, I should have changed mine.
So the whole team goes to play a friendly match or an exhibition match, and Ted didn't know it was a friendly. So that the first joke right off the bat, that was funny. But the many different storylines that they all weaved into together, and it all revolved around the theme, I think, of the whole episode was like, let's get lost, right? The whole jazz song from Chet Baker, which is one storyline, but I think everyone in there got lost in their own little storyline. They all came back together at the end in the bus. So I thought that was really cool. I thought it was a very well written episode. So Brendan Hunt, you and your team did a great job. I did have one part that I didn't like at the very end, but we'll get to that. And it has to do with Gazelig and Rebecca's storyline. And I'll tell you why I didn't like it when we get to that. But I want to talk about first. Where to begin? There's so many different plot points to begin with. I mean, the team lost again, of course, which leads them on this another downward spiral. But as Jan said in his interview, our spirit was already broken. So it didn't really do much to them to lose again. So, but Roy Kent's interview was hilarious.
So
it's not even a real match.
Roy Kent. You're not a real reporter. This isn't even real news. I loved it. And then of course Keely walks by and he's like, "Hey Keely," like all nice all of a sudden.
And
I honestly forgot about that part. That was great.
That was an interesting part because Roy goes up to Rebecca afterwards and asks, "Where is she going?" And Rebecca tells Roy somewhere where someone believes they deserve her or something like that.
Yes.
So that was interesting. Also a callback to what Roy had told Rebecca about what the honest truth about her going after her ex-boyfriend, I guess, right? So that was interesting.
Yes. Don't settle for ordinary.
Yeah.
Settle for or don't settle for fine. You deserve better than fine. And so it's interesting because his words are kind of turning on him a little bit. Obviously she goes on a date with Jack, her boss. And this is kind of the first time that Roy is realizing that Keely's dating someone else. And not just that, but it seems like he knows that it's a woman and he understands, obviously. And so we've seen kind of throughout all of the episodes that Keely's sexuality is very fluid.
Yeah.
And, she talks earlier on, maybe I'll dip my foot back into the lady pool when she's talking with Rebecca and Make Rebecca Great Again episode. So it's very clear that Roy's kind of okay with it. He just sort of wants her to be happy, but he's very clearly hurt by the fact that it's not him.
Yeah.
So that's kind of tough to watch. But speaking of Roy, I mean, I just absolutely loved and adored his relationship with Jamie Tart this entire episode. I mean, it was just such brotherly love. I mean, we saw it in the episode where, Jamie's dad came and slapped him or hit him or whatever and pushed him around. And Roy comes up and gives him a big hug. And we've sort of been seeing the tension between them. Hasn't been quite like that episode until now. So obviously Roy pulls Jamie out, takes his anger about Keeley out on him, makes him hang out with him the entire night while the team gets to hang out. But it turns into like a lovely, wonderful night. And Jamie opens up a little bit and gets vulnerable, and so does Roy.
Yeah. And I thought that was probably one of my favorite parts of the episode, their interactions, their connection. And because Jamie, I guess he wanted to go see the sights. And so he took Roy on this roundabout running tour of Amsterdam, which I thought was really cool. And the funniest part, I laughed, I think, the most was when Jamie decided to teach Roy how to ride a bike. And I laughed the most of this whole episode. I was sitting there just busting up because it was just funny. Roy, his stiff robotic self, as he normally is to begin with, just falling over. And I was just laughing so much for that part.
So good. But also kind of sad, though, because like Roy's a grown man and, he can't ride a bike. And so he gets vulnerable. And this is sort of the first time that we see Roy get vulnerable with another male. I mean, it's different when he does it with Keeley or Ted, obviously his coach, but with someone who he used to hate, Jamie.
Yeah, true.
And so he never learned how to ride a bike because whenever he got scouted by Sunderland, he left so early. He sort of didn't have a normal childhood. And then we also see the storyline of Jamie. For whatever reason, he knows all this stuff about Amsterdam and Roy's wondering why. And it turns out that, Jamie's dad took him to Amsterdam a long time ago when he was a kid
when he was 14,
and did all the touristy things. But he was there sort of for an alternative motive and brought him to this womanizing bar. And obviously he ended up, hearing this very sad story, losing his virginity to these women when he was very young, sort of forced to by his dad. And then we see the second time he returns, it was for his mom, which was a much happier memory. But again, we see these two very painful parts of Jamie and Roy that they get to sort of bond over, which it's just like this beautiful moment. Like you guys are family now, and like we are each other's family. We all kind of came from messed up families. So, they get to bond with their trauma together. So it was really such a well-written, just, I don't know, trying to think of the word, natural, like over time, friendship that we've seen build.
Yeah, it didn't seem forced. Yeah, because, they hated each other at the very beginning. Now because Jamie approached Roy to train him. So now it's, it's building upon that. But we also see that there's extra layers to that relationship. And it really came to a head there when they were going to find a windmill, which I thought was so cool. Because Roy didn't believe that they existed.
He goes, they're fake windmills. They're not even real. I'm like, honestly, though, the town, he goes, this town looks like it's all fake. It just looks like a Christmas town. I'm like, yeah, it kind of does look fake.
It kind of does,
for questioning that. Okay, so moving on, let's talk about the team. Okay, because Ted, he's kind of talking about, man, how do we get these guys to calm down? Everything's just in their head. That's why we keep losing. Let's just do the one thing that no coach wants to ever tell their team. And he says, no curfew. And all of them freak out. And they're like, yeah, we're going to do all this crazy stuff. But they can't decide on what to do. They're talking about going to different things, different clubs. Danny's so cute, so pure. Wants to go see the tulips, which I mean, honestly, I want to go see the tulips in Amsterdam. Jan Moss is from there, or from the area. He wants to go see it. Who's his cousin Diplo or not?
Martin Garrix.
Martin Garrix, the DJ. He's like, there's a party 2 hours away, and they're like, 2 hours away. Everyone sort of has their different ideas on what they want to do, and the team can't decide. So we have this just the entire episode is them trying to argue it out and figure out what they're going to do.
Yeah, it was hilarious. I mean, it got very Lord of the Flies type of vibe for me there in the lobby of the hotel when they were trying to decide, because they couldn't vote on what to do, and I think the accumulation with what it came to was really a great bonding experience for the team. And it reminded me of like when Roy took Isaac to go play football on just the night field and just have fun again.
Just have fun. Yes.
Yeah. So not just play and have fun. So it kind of reminded me of that. And they got themselves out of that funk by just, as we know, accumulated with some epic pillow fight.
They had the dang pillow fight. And that's a reference to the earlier ones, Ted, hey, we're going to either watch a team movie together or we're going to have a pillow fight and you guys are never going to watch a movie together again. So they did mention it in earlier episodes.
That's true. We're
all just so heartbroken that they finally did it and Ted wasn't even there to have fun with it.
Right.
So I think that part really annoyed some of the audience members. I think that's a lot of the criticism I've seen online.
Really?
I was just annoyed with the team. Like they end up going all this way to Amsterdam and they don't even do anything, unique to Amsterdam. They do a pillow fight that they could have done anywhere else. And I'm like, that's not the point, people.
Exactly.
Like the point is that they've been struggling and they've been arguing and they can't find this team chemistry on the field. And it's because they can't find it off the field.
Right.
And then, them having the pillow fight and then getting back to it is them finding their way again, finding that groove. And so I think it is going to have an effect on their gameplay when they come onto the field the next time. And same thing with, it was Rebecca. Rebecca couldn't figure out what to do. And neither could Ted and Beard. And so I think the episode was a little misleading on purpose, us thinking like, oh, Ted and Rebecca, they're going to hang out together. They kind of figured this out with them texting each other. And then we come to see that's not what happens at all. Rebecca goes on a walk. We'll get to that in a second. And then Ted and Beard kind of agree on staying home. Ted wants to try something new. And Beard's like, I've been waiting for this.
I've been waiting for a long time for this.
And this episode is kind of paying homage to Jason Sudeikis and Brendan Hunt's real life experience in Amsterdam when they were touring for their comedy club. And they've talked extensively in interviews. They took mushrooms and did all these sorts of drugs while they were in Amsterdam. And so Beard's like, we're going to do, what was it? Mushroom tea.
So,
And of course it's mushroom tea. And Ted's like, oh man, come on. Did it have to be tea? That's like putting peanut butter in poop water or something like that.
Poop into a cup of vomit or something like that.
Yeah, putting poop into a cup of vomit. That's so funny. But so Brendan, and obviously playing Beard here, is very excited to do mushrooms with Ted. Ted ends up not doing them and Beard goes along his way. But then after he leaves, Ted drinks all this tea and goes about on the town.
Yep. It was interesting because seeing Beard sit there, kind of stroking the couch because he's so anxious just to get out into Amsterdam and go find some trouble or find, where the night will take him. And then as soon as Ted tells him, you don't have to stay here, you can go. All right, see you tomorrow. It was
they understand each other though. That's
of
their
course.
Friendship,
Yeah.
And so obviously Beardo goes away. Ted ends up drinking the drink. He goes to this museum. And of course, Vincent van Gogh. Right. And so we see his painting, very famous painting, Sunflowers. I'm not sure if that's the actual name of the painting or not, but there's sunflowers in it. And okay, perfect. And Ted's just staring at it. We have this understanding that he's probably high on the mushrooms and he's sort of tripping. And just the way the editing of this episode was, well done to the editing team. I mean, it was just brilliant and beautiful, very cinematic. But, we realize sunflowers are the state flower of Kansas. And so it's very special to Ted. We're kind of like, oh man, Ted's getting these signs about home. How does this make us feel? I think it's also important to mention Vincent van Gogh. I'm pretty sure, was it either him or his dad had actually passed away from suicide? I think it him?
I don't recall. I just know he had a lot of mental health issues, of course, with
Yes.
splicing off his ear and everything. So
Splicing off it, yes. And so the artist himself, his backstory, or his family's backstory, obviously Ted's dad killed himself as well. And that was a big impact on Ted's life. And so there's that little connection there between the artist and Ted. So it's supposed to be sort of a very emotional museum trip for Ted.
Yeah.
And then he finds his way into this American bar and restaurant and take it away from here.
And yeah, at the bar, the American, I forgot the name of the bar, but I thought it was really cool because he goes in there and he's greeted by the host and he's like, oh, wow, because the host had an American Southern accent. So he's like, oh, what part of the States are you from? And he's all Melbourne. Then he goes into his normal Australian accent.
Australian accent.
So he gets seated, and I thought that little joke was funny. He's like, okay, I'll go. And he makes a Chicago musical reference about Roxy Hart. And the host is just like staring at him blankly. Huh? It's like, okay, fine. Chicago, still staring at him blankly.
Still doesn't know.
Windy City. And then
it's very clear they don't know.
Yeah.
That was perfect.
And then when he's there at the table ordering his food, he gets offered to choose some sauces. The 50 nifty sauces or something, United sauces, which I thought was cool. Then he said, pick whichever one you want from me. Surprise me. Waitress comes back, hands him a bottle of barbecue sauce. So I thought that was really cool. Ted and his barbecue sauce story. And why did you pick me that? Why'd you choose that one? Because, maybe he thinks he's tripping on the shrooms and everything. So everything's like has more of a meaning than it actually does. And she's just like, oh, because it's the best one. So, yep. And
but sorry, real quick, that barbecue sauce that they picked was the same barbecue sauce that Jason always talks about and that Ted actually got sent, remember, in the first season by Henry. That barbecue sauce is from Kansas City.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah.
So it was
that makes more sense now. Yeah.
Joe Arthur or whatever barbecue sauce. So it was barbecue sauce that Ted knew well and intimately and was literally from Kansas City. It was his favorite barbecue sauce.
Wow.
So it did have a lot of meaning there.
And then he has his out-of-body experience, if you will, when he meets the TSA, the True Spirit of Adventure, I guess is what they call it. And he learns about triangles. And because he was watching the Bulls game, and the triangle offense that was instilled there with Michael Jordan. And he remembers that game fondly because he used to watch it with his dad. He remembers watching basketball with his dad. And so he gets on a little trip, or what he thinks is a trip. And it's just wonderful how that all came together. It was so cool. It was very, it's all in his mind, but we just see it, how it's his thought process. So I thought that was really cool.
Well, yeah. And like I said, the editing, my goodness, the animation, this felt like I was tripping, right? Like I've never done much before, but I imagine that's probably exactly what it's like. And, it was just one of those things where you felt like you fell in the rabbit hole, right? It felt very Alice in Wonderland. And it was just beautiful artistry on their part. So, well done. Anyway, so that's where Ted's story kind of ends for the night. We talked about the team. We talked about Roy and Jamie. We talked about, so sort of a little side story here. Didn't really understand Higgins and Will's little side story trip. They went to a jazz club, and I know that they're both musicians, and so it matters a lot to them. And Higgins is kind of mysterious the whole night, talking about, oh, I'm going to make Will a man. And we're like, what does that mean? But, Higgins ends up going up and playing, his instrument and having the best time. Will's enjoying himself, ends up having a threesome, apparently. He calls his mom about it the next day.
And tells her about it.
So that was kind of a weird offshoot, and there's not really anything else to talk about that, I don't think. But we see Rebecca have a very different experience, right? She falls into the canal. That's the spoiler that everyone on Twitter was waiting for. They knew she fell into the canal. She gets swept up off her feet and rescued by this man living in a houseboat.
Yep.
And he sort of seems to be the fulfillment of the psychic words, right? You're wet,
Yeah.
you're cold, you're underwater, you're upside down, but you're safe. And so she never makes that realization, I don't think, in the episode. But the whole time, that's what we're the audience thinking. And so this man just ends up being perfect and hospitable. She spends the night. He has a daughter. You know, his ex-wife, cheated on him. Supposedly, this is the story that
he told her. Yeah,
he tells her, and they sort of end up having a very romantic time. What were your thoughts on this mystery man and, their little adventure?
Well, I thought it was, like you said, it fulfilled all the psychic's visions. So I thought it was really cool. I mean, he even pulled out when she was bleeding, pulled out a green box, so I was like, oh, green box. And then, all sorts of little things like that. But I thought it was cool, especially the singing of, the Kenny Rogers song, and they both busted into that. I thought that was really fun. But at the end of their encounter is what I have a problem with.
Ooh, I know what you're talking about. Okay, let's hear it.
So it was all fun and great. And she asked him, did we do anything? After a while pause, he says no. And then they kiss and she goes on her way. And then he says to himself again, did we do anything? Yes, we did. That kind of bugged me.
It bugged me too.
I was like, ooh.
I think it's supposed to, though. Because for those of you that watched, obviously we're talking about the end where, they were drunk. They were drinking wine while her clothes were drying. But by the way, those designer clothes, you would never put those in a dryer. Okay, you get those dry cleaned anyways. And he's massaging her feet. And we see this scene where he goes to the bedroom and shuts the door because she falls asleep on the couch. And he very gently puts the blanket on her. So we're to assume that nothing happened between them two. That's the assumption until he says that. And then we're like, did he take advantage of her? We don't know what this means.
Right.
Is it also a coded message? Like, does it mean that they slept together? Or does it mean like, oh, we did a lot more than just hang out last night? It was more of an emotional thing. Like, I'm falling for you.
Right.
So I think there's been a lot of interpretations of that. I don't think that Ted Lasso would have like a sexual assault storyline personally. It just doesn't sound like it fits, but it was very odd and uncomfortable. I did not like when he said that either. I was like, oh, I didn't like that. So you're not alone.
Yeah, good. I'm glad that, and you're right. I don't think the writers would put in a sexual assault on there, on purpose, because it was odd. But just the way he said it, kind of like, okay, after she fell asleep, did he go do something? Did Rebecca follow him when she woke up and go into there? There's a lot of gray area, which, maybe in the next few episodes, we'll find out what that gray area was. But it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Sorry, Brendan.
You're not the only one. You're not the only one. I didn't like it. A lot of people on Twitter, it was their biggest complaint was it was out of character and odd and left way too open for interpretation. So I think that was a weird part. I'm just going to assume, hopefully, that nothing happened. And I hope that he's just this one-off character who is meant to throw us off, but actually help us realize that Rebecca and Ted are perfect for each other in the end anyways, because this dude was so similar to Ted.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Kenny Rogers, the song, the last person that Rebecca sung in front of was Ted every time that Ted's been around. And then, earlier Ted sung a Kenny Rogers song to Rebecca in season 1. What was it? Know how to hold them, know when to fold. It's weird, the parallels. And so I think he's meant to throw people off, but I personally don't want them to end up together. Everyone thinks Ted Becca is over. I'm not ready to admit it yet. I'm not flying my white flag just yet. Man, yeah, but I mean, other people are saying too he has a daughter, right? And so, or supposedly, we assume he has a daughter. He never said that himself. So people are saying, oh, well, she's going to fall in love with him and marry him, and he has a daughter, and that's going to be her family, that the psychic was talking about. So there was a lot to think about and chew on with that relationship, situationship thing. Let's move on to, unless you have anything else to add. Real quick.
I just wanted to say one of the jokes right before I was rubbed the wrong way with that was, I'll never forget you. And then he said matter of factly, oh, you might. People get Alzheimer's.
That was one of those jokes where it was like, okay, that's kind of a thick and twisted joke, but also you're not wrong, right? It's
yeah, exactly.
literal.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of made me chuckle a little bit too. But I'm like, ooh, dark humor.
Yeah.
I also thought it was interesting. He didn't know who she was.
Yes. Very true.
You know, he had no idea she was a football manager. And by the way, she lost her phone in the canal. So we see this thing where Ted's texting her the whole time, trying to hang her. She has no idea. And so, yeah, it's very interesting that he didn't know who she was. So will he come back in later episodes? Could she possibly be pregnant if this was a one night stand? That's what people are saying. So we'll leave it at that and move on to, I think, my favorite interaction of the entire night. Trent, Krim, and
Colin.
So do you want to take that one away? Go ahead and explain what happened.
Well, okay, I'll do my best to paraphrase it shortly. So Colin, as we know, he is a gay footballer, and of course he has to leave the two separate lives. He even explains it in the episode, which I thought was brilliantly written about having the two different lives. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But he tells the team, oh, I've had some bad pickled herring or something like that. So he wasn't feeling well. And so he goes up to his room, then he sneaks out to go find, I guess, a gay club and he does find it. But Trent Krim follows him, which I thought was cool. And speaking to what you said, last week or the week before, sure enough, Trent is also gay. So you nailed it there.
Listen, I can tell.
But, and I guess
good.
It leads to what we asked: will Trent keep it a secret, or will the journalist in him want to expose it? And because I guess he also had to deal with hiding that for a while, he decided to not tell anyone, and he hasn't told anyone in months. So I think that's very admirable of him, and I thought that was very cool, and it showed a deeper level of understanding for Trent and how he's more than just this gotcha journalist now. So I thought that was really cool. I really enjoyed that. And then they spend an evening together talking about their lives. And Trent explains that he's had to come out twice to his ex-wife now, and the second time she finally believed him. And his daughter now is even more happy as she's been. So I thought that was really good for Trent. I really happy that he's been able to live his authentic self. Yes. And now for Colin, if you want to get into that, what he told Trent about having a dual life, and maybe what Dr. Sharon told him.
Sure. So exactly what you said. I think the writers nailed this. And I think that this was such an episode that showed the delicate line that people in the LGBTQ community walk every day. Silent battle. And I actually have a friend who's gay and closeted and has not told their family yet because they're very scared of the consequences, and said, this episode was such a great way, made them feel so much better about possibly coming out, just wanting to be their authentic self, understanding not everyone's gonna get it, but that sometimes it's so difficult to live those two lives. And Colin, I think, was saying so beautifully, I see all of these guys, all of these footballers win a game or lose a game and go kiss their fellas or kiss their girls.
Their ladies,
and their ladies after the game. And I just want to be able to go and kiss my fella, and that just broke my heart. My gosh. Yeah. It's something so taken for granted that not normal, but straight people, don't have to worry about. It's just second nature, but something Colin wants to do so desperately that he can't. And so Trent understands, and I had a feeling that he was gonna sort of tell Colin, like, hey, it's okay to have these feelings. And then Colin turns around and he's like, yeah, I think I could tell the team, I think they'd be okay with it, but I'm just not there yet. And something really cool that Trent talks about, these bells behind them start going off. And Trent goes, these are the same bells that Anne Frank heard. Anne Frank lived through the Holocaust, and her and her family were stuck up in that room hiding from the Nazis, and they heard those bells every night. And I think it was such a perfect, beautiful line and metaphor saying, she was brave and she went through, it's not to compare, like her pain was a lot worse than her thing, but like an understanding of, hey, what you're going through is extremely difficult. And this is something, like, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be scared, but it's also okay to want to live that authentic life and to, you are brave enough, essentially, just like Anne Frank, you are brave enough to go out and face the darkness. I thought that was just really cool. That was even mentioned in the episode. So, there's clearly a little war going on within Colin, with, again, metaphorical war that was happening. Was it World War II with Anne Frank and stuff like that? So, just a really interesting little tidbit of knowledge from Trent there. But yeah, I mean, just a gorgeous, just emotional scene between them. Sorry, I think my dog just sneezed. But yeah, I mean, so powerful, very powerful. And then we see them go out and then they dance at the gay club together, and it's just such a bonding moment. And how difficult for Trent too. Like you said, he was clearly married, has a daughter. How difficult would it be to be hiding that you're gay from your wife? And she didn't believe you the first time. And so two very different coming out stories. But things that they could bond over. And at the very end, we see this little gesture from Colin, and we'll get to that when they're on the bus, sort of acknowledging like, hey, I kind of have a friend in Trent now. And so I have a feeling Colin is going to come out at some point. And I do think the team's going to be really welcoming and receptive towards it. That doesn't mean everyone else will be.
Very true. I did like the fact that Colin now has an ally in the locker room, so someone he can confide in there, and it doesn't have to keep it all bottled in. I thought that was really cool.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Such a good moment. Let's get to the end here. I know we're probably running out of time, but what a cool ending. The whole episode was so crazy and trippy. I'm like, can we just have like a chill ending here? Of course, they all come on the bus and they're ready to load up and get home. And we see Ted explaining to Beard that his trip led him to this whole new, game plan. And he's like, we're going to do this and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I invented it. And Beard's like, yeah, it's called, let's call it this or whatever.
Total football.
Freestyle. Yeah.
Total football.
And he's like, that's a great name, coach. And he's like, yeah, it was invented here in Amsterdam.
In Holland.
A couple hundred years ago. Oh, by the way, Beard rolls up out of nowhere in a hippie van in like a disco outfit painted with who was it? Not
Ziggy Stardust,
Freddie
David
Mercury.
Bowie.
Yes. Yeah, not Freddie Mercury. Oh my gosh.
David Bowie.
What did I just say? Yes. Yeah. So of course he has another we interpret it as he had another one of his beard nights.
He did.
No one on the bus questions it though. They're like, yeah, that kind of tracks. That's valid.
That's Coach Beard. Yeah.
And so anyways, they have this moment on the bus and it's like, you know what, this play though, even though you didn't invent it, Coach Lasso, it could work. Just the whole point was like, we're doing too much here. Let the guys play. Let them free ball it. Like let them figure it out because they know what they're doing. We've been trying too hard. And we can obviously see like they were able to figure it out what to do with the pillow fight last night. They just have this synergy with them. Maybe us coaches need to step back and let them go. So I think we're supposed to feel hopeful. And Rebecca hops on the bus too. And Ted's like, where the heck were you? Yeah, she's glowing. She's glowing. Like, you had a good night, whatever. And Ted's like, I was trying to reach you all night. And she's like, my phone fell into a canal very casually. Didn't say anything else. And then a small tidbit here. Like I said, the moment between Trent and Colin, Colin sort of reaches forward and grabs Trent and sort of little squeeze on the shoulder. Like, hey, we're here for each other.
Yeah.
And a funny moment, you might have missed it. I caught it the second watch through. Sam coughs.
The feathers,
yeah. The feathers. If you weren't paying attention, you would have missed it. But
I saw that.
Go watch it. Go watch it again. He coughs up feathers from the pillow fight that they had.
Yeah.
And it ends with them all singing. What is it? Don't worry, be happy, or
don't worry about a thing.
Yeah. Don't worry.
Bob Marley. Yep.
And they're all just singing it, having a good time. And Ted and Rebecca are singing with each other. The whole bus starts singing. It's just this beautiful culminating moment of they're a team again.
Yep.
And I just love that Rebecca rode the bus back because she didn't have to.
Yeah, she didn't.
Right? But she did. And so she wants, that was my interpretation of Ted Becca could still be alive. Okay. I'm holding on hope because she wanted to go sit back there and she sat right next to him.
Yeah, that's true.
And so people don't hate on me for that, but I'm holding out. But it was just a cool moment where they're a team and they're a family and they're all on the same page now. So I think it's going to be very different going forward on the field for them. I think they're finally going to get in their groove.
Yes, and I didn't really want this episode to end because I wanted to see them implement the new Total Football because I'm really, really waiting for the next episode when they hopefully show it because I think it's going to do wonders and it's going to lead the Greyhounds to much success.
Right. Isn't it weird that you thought that though? Because I kind of thought that too. I'm like, that's it. But this was the longest episode I think in all of the episode's history.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it was 63 minutes and someone said on Twitter, it was a basketball reference to the highest score ever made in like a playoff game or something like that. Cause Jason's a big basketball fan. I thought that was kind of interesting, but yeah, I mean, this was 63 minutes and I even felt like, oh, wow, it's over. So what does that say about the storytelling and the acting? I mean, it's just brilliant. So what a fun episode. What a wild episode. A lot to take away here. Final thing real quick. I saw another thing on Twitter, of course, love that place. Probably too dangerous for me. Someone apparently figured out this episode had a lot of parallels with Pulp Fiction and Quentin Tarantino, and some of the songs that played were very, I think, actually exact songs that were played in some of his movies. The angle, of course, all of us know, QT, our boy QT has maybe a foot fetish a little bit in his movie. And, the mystery man's massaging Rebecca's feet. And this very Tarantino angle, which I'm going to probably go crazy. Like, no, you're right. Like this.
Yeah, very. Right? Yeah, I got you.
No one else does that. And there's this moment with Rebecca and the guy that's very much like that. And something about one of his characters getting pushed out of a window and dying. And that was very similar to the jazz club that they went to. So there's weirdly these parallels between Pulp Fiction, some Quentin Tarantino, maybe just nods to him rather than meaningful. I don't know. I mean, nothing is an accident, of course, in Ted Lasso episodes. They're very particular. But they do pay homage to so many different, pop culture references. Does it mean anything, or is it just like, hey, we like Quentin Tarantino? So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I can see that. I wasn't paying attention to it like that, I guess. So maybe a third watch will be in order for me in order to be able to tell that. But I can definitely see, I mean, especially with the music, because I know Tarantino is very specific with his music selection, and so is Ted Lasso. They're very specific with their musical choices. So I'll have to go compare them and see.
Yes. If there's anybody out there who has also noticed that or noticed something else, please let us know, because we love those little factoids and things. So kudos to whoever I read that from on Twitter. You guys are very, very vigilant and you guys catch everything. Nothing gets by the people of Twitter. So I even learned something new. So just passing that along. Anyways, I'm very excited for the next episode. I think this opened up a lot of pathways for the next episode. I think we're going to get a win here. So it's going to be insane. I think it's just going to go take off from here.
No, I think so. It was a good, I guess, springboard to what's coming up in the future. So there's much to be hopeful for. There's much to be excited for. I'm not going to believe, because, we ripped that part and we're moving past that. So now we're on to the next thing, which is just going to be hope.
Hope. I like it. Well, hopefully the next episode comes out early. Come on, let's go. Yeah. It probably won't, but we can hope, right?
We sure can. So everyone out there, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for tuning in, listening to us talk about Ted Lasso, because it's what we love to do. So hopefully if you enjoyed it, leave us a comment, tell us your thoughts, and we'll see you all next time.
Woo! Bye guys. Love you.